I was gonna shoot this video outside, but you know, I come from the Bronx, and so I have this parking trauma in my body, which means when you have a good parking space and it's gonna snow, you probably shouldn't move your car, because then if I come back to my neighborhood and I can't find a parking space, I gotta park like a mile away, and then I gotta walk through the snow and all the bad stuff. So I stayed here, and that was a slate so I could sync this audio. I watched a video this morning, and I believe that Gerald Undone told me to buy a Panasonic GH7, which I'm not really looking to do. I'm shooting on a Panasonic S5, the original. And actually the S5 made it to that video, which is kind of cool. But I don't know if he told me to buy a GH7 or an S5 Mark II, but he definitely told me to buy one of those. And you know, the only reason I really watched the video is because I needed kind of a rest from all the craziness that's going on in this country right now. And that's a good way to do it. You know, just watch a video about some meaningless camera stuff. Even though cameras are such an integral part of our lives, if you're a filmmaker, if you're an artist of any kind, even if you're just doing YouTube videos. But I mean, if you're making feature films, if you're, you know, using it like I use it in the theater where I shoot myself, and I kind of use it as if I'm a director because I'm doing solo shows. And anyway, there are a lot of good uses for a camera. And I'm using a Minolta 35mm Rokkor vintage lens, f2.8, and I'm shooting in APS-C mode. So I got kind of a different kind of perspective, and I use different temperatures for my lighting, just messing around, just playing, just trying to learn all the time, and just trying to kind of push the envelope and learn how to shape light and all the good things. So I watched Gerald Undone's video, and I thought, man, I owe him an apology. And I owe Patrick Tomaso an apology, another one of my favorite YouTubers, and Mark Bone, one of my favorite YouTubers by far. Even that dude from Camera Conspiracies, even though he drives me a little crazy, I like his channel. He's somebody I owe an apology to. Mark Bennett, another YouTuber. I can name you so many YouTubers who come from Canada. And I think Matty Hapoya lives in Canada. I think a lot of YouTubers live in Canada. And as somebody from New York, which is in the United States, I have to apologize, because we don't want you to have to become a 51st state. We don't want you to be at odds with us. We don't want any of the people who live here. We don't want that. I hope you don't think that. I hope you don't think that I agree with any of this bullshit, because I don't. It's actually scaring me to death. But anyway, the GH7 sounds amazing, you know? 32-bit float internal in the camera. That's crazy, although I don't really believe in 32-bit float. I don't think it really exists. I think you still have to know how to set your audio levels. I come from a pro audio background, so I'm actually using a Zoom H1N right now. I'm recording it to this, so I'm gonna have to sync the audio. That's why I clapped my hands before. I'm using a Purple Panda lavalier mic. It's a cheap lavalier mic, but it sounds pretty good, even though my voice is kind of fucked up today. My voice gets like this sometimes when I'm upset. Sometimes it's like an emotional reaction, when I'm stressed, when I'm really messed up. And actually, as a performing artist, that's a bad thing. And then I have to compensate for it on stage, or if I'm doing a movie, if I'm, you know, having to shoot a scene and I'm like this, I have to figure out how to get above that. And I do know how to get above it, but it's a challenge. And Mark Bone, man, like, I've been wanting to join the art of documentary for a while, but honestly, I'm like doing my own projects all the time, and I'm all by myself, and so I'm spending every penny of my life doing my projects. But the art of documentary sounds like and looks like an amazing community of people. Like, I don't feel like I needed to learn how to be a filmmaker although certainly I got plenty to learn. But I mean, I've shot 2 feature films on my own. I've shot hundreds and hundreds of YouTube videos. I've done short films for people. I've done a lot of work. And so I know how to use a camera. And I understand lenses and all that kind of stuff. But the community, that's what you learn from. Like, how did you shoot that film? Why'd you choose that location? How did you figure out those shots? How many people did you use? Did you have 1 camera or 3 cameras? Like, I don't know, just the ability to bounce things off of people. Because I don't really care about gear. Although, Gerald, man, that GH7, like the S5 II, like the stabilization is better than the S5. My S5 stabilization is so dope, so ridiculous. So if that's better, but then again, I used to use the Sony a6400 and I didn't mind working with a camera that didn't have stabilization because it taught me how to kind of have this kind of zen relationship with my camera where I kind of make it a part of my body, and I got the shots exactly what I wanted. But then again, I bought the Panasonic S5 because I wanted better stabilization. And obviously, I could care less about autofocus. I don't even use it. And I love shooting anamorphic with this camera. The S5, so dope. But Gerald made the S5 II sound so amazing. Although I am concerned sometimes about moire, and I know, like phase detect autofocus is kind of changing the sensor, and people have complained that they've seen that aliasing kind of stuff. But I don't know. I think there's so many people using that camera and so many people who I respect who have said such great things about it. I'm sure it's hardly an issue. But that GH7 sounds cool. I actually saw a documentary, or not a documentary, a YouTube video about somebody who was shooting a documentary in Ukraine, who was in the middle of the war with like bombs falling around him. And he decided, hey, you know what? A good idea would be to go set up the camera and make a review of the GH7 and let people know how good it is in this kind of circumstance, this kind of run and gun in a war. I wonder if that guy was from, oh no, that guy was from Europe. Oh, man, I owe him an apology too. Like, we're not, like what the vice president said to you the other day, like, no, the people, we don't agree with that. We're not with that program. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how this happened. I know a lot of people voted for the people that are in office right now doing all this stuff, but I also know that a lot of people who did that regret it right now, especially over the next 6-8 months. That's why I have a new thing right now where my whole thing about making my art and living my life is to be kind. To be kind to everybody, even the people I disagree with, even the people who voted, in my estimation, the wrong way. Of course I feel that way. But I feel like everybody's going to be affected by this deeply, in the United States especially. But of course the entire world, because the entire world has depended upon us for so much, even though we've done some fucked up shit over the years, for sure. That just made me think, like, would anybody in their right mind go to Gaza to play golf if they developed it and they're just asking people to just leave, like just go away? We don't agree with that. We're not with that program at all. We're not trying to change Greenland to red, white, and blue land. We're not doing that. I apologize for that. Patrick Tommaso, man. He's the reason I bought the S5. I was actually looking for another Sony camera. I was about to drop like $4,000 and more to get an FX3. And then I watched Patrick Tommaso, and then because of his video, I started watching other videos on the S5, and I saw Sam Holland and all these other people, and I was like, I'm gonna get an S5. I'm gonna save so much money. And forget about the money. It just seems like a better camera for me. And I'm in love with this camera. So thank you, Patrick Tommaso, and I owe you an apology because I'm not with this thing. Nah. I'm kind of speechless. This person does not represent how I feel or how anybody I know feel. Like all the people that I know in the world, nobody feels this way. Everybody's in a state of shock. Everybody's like, what the fuck? Like we're at odds with Canada. I mean, the GH7 is like, you know, I know Micro Four Thirds would be maybe hard for me to go, well, to be honest, I have a GH5 because I got a GH5 as a backup when I was working on a project for somebody and we were outdoors a lot, and I was thinking, I can mess up my camera out here. I better have a backup because this woman has paid me already. I don't want to be caught without a camera. So I looked for a cheap camera online and I found a GH5, and I know it was legendary. And even though I had no Micro Four Thirds lenses, I bought the GH5 for $475. I got two really inexpensive lenses, TT Artisan 17mm f1.4 and a Mikey 35mm f1.4, and both of them are like super dope, like ridiculous. And I fell in love with the GH5. So, you know, having a GH7, it would be hard for me to go back because I'm used to full frame now. And I like to be able to, you know, like for me, choosing focal lengths and aperture is like a spiritual practice. That's how I look at it, you know, like trying to make everything look like a painting. So it would be more challenging, but, you know, I would just get lenses that made me feel like I could do whatever I have to do. So I guess it wouldn't be, but, you know, I already have all these full frame lenses. I have my anamorphic lenses. I have all these vintage lenses. They're all full frame lenses. But I do have adapters for the Micro Four Thirds, but like this lens, this 35mm would suddenly be a 70mm on the GH5. So if I had a GH7, same thing. I don't know if I'd want to do that, but I don't know if it really makes that much of a difference either, you know. And I'm not going to lie. And a lot of people will find this interesting to hear from me, but I wouldn't mind having reliable autofocus to do something like this, where I don't have to like go through changes to, you know, I'm like 5 feet from the camera right now. Obviously I had to go through, I mean, it took me like 5 minutes to focus this, and I'm shooting at f4, so it's a little bit easier than if I had it at f2.8, where I'd have like a sliver of, you know, focus. So, you know, depth of field. So that's the only thing. My depth of field would be challenged with a GH7, but man, it sounds like it's built like a tank. I would have the opportunity, you know, I could shoot straight to an SSD drive. That would be kind of cool. Although I don't like putting accessories on my camera, so honestly, I'm not sure I would ever do that. I'm a solo shooter. Like, I shot 2 feature films all by myself. I know that sounds crazy, and why would I even want to do that? But I did it mostly because I've learned as a solo theater artist to never wait for anybody, to never, you know, let money be a barrier, never let collaborators be a barrier, none of that. Just do it yourself, learn how to do it. And so I learned how to do it. And they both won a lot of awards, so that's pretty cool. You know, first one I shot on my phone. So that's why I'm wide open. Like, I'm not married to any camera company or format. You know, I've used APS-C obviously with the A6400. I've used full frame. I've used Micro Four Thirds now. I know that I can make it look like whatever I want it to look like. Like, as long as you are willing to learn about lights and really get into what the frame looks like, your composition, then it doesn't really matter. You know, like, any of these modern cameras are awesome. But Gerald Undone, you know, like, he was pretty much saying, like, yo, the S5 II, the best value camera ever made. That's what he said. But then the GH7, I can't quote him on that, but other people have said it's the perfect camera, stuff like that. That's crazy. Great dynamic range. You know, like, I know that the GH5 doesn't struggle in low light for me, so I guess I'm never in circumstances where I need 12,800 ISO, but even when I raise the, you know, even when I go up to 800, 1,000, 1,200, 1,600 on the GH5, it doesn't look noisy to me. It comes out fine. I know how to do it. So I don't really feel like Micro Four Thirds is that challenging for low light, but maybe if I was a wedding photographer or something like that, and maybe if I saw things differently, I guess the way I see things. And because I'm doing my own work, like, I generally don't have a client like breathing down my neck, and the people that do hire me, they're hiring me because they like what I do. They're kind of letting me do the project and be the director. And I've never had anybody be unhappy with what I've done for them. So I think Micro Four Thirds, if I only had a Micro Four Thirds camera, I'd have 2 anamorphic lenses like I have for this camera. And I would use my vintage lenses, and I would get some ultra-wide lenses so that I could have the same focal length that I have now. I would get a couple of those .095 aperture lenses, I guess. But I don't even know if I would need them. Because, you know, these f1.4 lenses, you know, that's like kind of the equivalent of f2.8 in full frame. That's plenty. I don't hardly ever shoot faster than f2.8. And in fact, most of the time I shoot at f8. Most of the time I'm just zone focusing, and it's really more about creating foreground and background and composition. You know what I mean? Like, it's more about creating what you want to see. It's not about just obliterating the background. I mean, every once in a while as an effect, okay. Yeah, I just feel like I owed everybody an apology. I'm not going to buy a GH7. I love my S5. I love it, you know. Even though rolling shutter is much better. That's kind of a thing, although, you know, to be honest, it never infiltrates my work, rolling shutter. I guess I don't shoot that way. So when I'm using the S5, I don't have any issues. I love the S5. I feel like the S5 looks like, it's like a movie-making machine. I think it's a beautiful image. And for me, at the end of the day, it's a small enough body where I can run around and do things the way I do them, which I'm really hard on a camera. And so the S5 is like a little Tank 2. Tank 2, that sounds like a name. Yo, Tank 2, what's up? You know, like, the S5 serves all my needs. I don't deal with the micro HDMI port because I don't like putting a monitor on the camera, and I actually love this monitor. I guess I'm used to it. I guess I'm used to it. And the screen is fine for me. I mean, the GH7 is better, I think. If I was just buying a brand new camera for the first time, I might consider the S5 II or the GH7. They seem like the perfect camera, but for me, the S5 is the perfect camera because it's my camera, because I'm used to it, and because I have it set up the way I want it set up, and because it would actually be a pain in the ass for me to switch cameras. Because I'm not a DP. I'm not one of these people you could just hand an Arri Alexa or hand any camera, you know, a Venice or whatever, and I can have it all together in like 2 minutes and then just make it look like a movie. I mean, I don't know, maybe I could do that. I don't know. I'm pretty fast with this, but, you know, I'm used to this camera, and the thought of changing is like getting new running shoes to me. Like I'll get used to a pair of running shoes, and then they don't make them anymore, and then I can't find them anymore, even used. Well, not used, I don't get used running shoes, but, you know, old, like, you know, when the store is selling stock items that, you know, back stock or whatever they call it. I don't like changing running shoes when I'm used to it, and sometimes I have to. So I guess if my S5 breaks and there are no used S5s out in the market, then I would probably look at an S5 II, because that would be best for all my lenses. But I don't know, I think a lot about the GH7, and I think, you know, honestly, it has a lot to do with that guy's review from Ukraine, who was in the war, in the middle of a war. I just thought, man, I want to use the camera just to honor that guy. Like, that's crazy. And Gerald Undone, you know, I have so much respect for his whole thing, and I believe what he says. And I almost feel like I want to buy something. I feel like I want to join the Art of Documentary, or I want to join Matty Hapoya's thing, or just to honor the Canadians. But I'm not going to do it because I don't have the money right now, and I'm sitting here like asking people to join my Patreon all the time. So how am I going to? I don't have any extra money right now, but I do have my heart and my genuine nature. And you know, this might seem like I'm being light about it and funny, but I don't feel that way. I feel embarrassed. I feel ashamed by the people who are supposedly representing me. They don't represent me. They're actually ignoring the Constitution of this country. So they don't represent me. I don't believe in that. As a matter of fact, I look at them as committing crimes. So I apologize to you guys. And there are a lot of women from Canada too, I think, in the filmmaking space. I apologize. I don't know all your names. I don't, you know, once I have a camera that I love, I don't really watch camera reviews and all that kind of stuff anymore. Like, it's just kind of a waste of time, to be honest. But when I am looking for a camera, I appreciate you so much, and I love these videos. And again, the Art of Documentary, Camera Conspiracies, Mark Bone, you know, like all these different Canadian artists, Matty Hapoya, you know, I've learned so much from you guys, and it's been tangible in my life. Like I've learned, I came from the theater. You know, the pandemic shut the biggest play I was ever going to do in my life. Something I had worked on for a few years got shut down because of COVID. And I just decided to make a movie with my phone based on that story. And I started to get into filmmaking. That's when I found out about all you people. And, you know, I learned so much for free. Like I could watch your videos for free. I mean, I always thought, like, how generous are these people giving me all this information for free? So I don't take that for granted. And even though I don't know any of you, you know, I like all of you. And I feel bad that you might think that, you know, the whole ugly American thing. I remember the first time I went to London to perform. This is when I was in the music business. I was in London for a few months, and I remember hearing for the first time in my life how people looked at Americans. And I was embarrassed about it because I agreed with them. You know, we think we're the greatest, we're the best, you know, we're the most spoiled. We are the most privileged, for sure, even though there's so much oppression and injustice in this country and a separation of the rich and the poor. And there's so many horrible things. And a lot of my creative life is activism, pushing back against that. But we are spoiled. We could say whatever we want. We could do whatever we want. Like in this country, we've been used to being able to complain. Like, I think part of the reason these people got into office right now is because of what's happening in Gaza. And I find that ironic because, you know, everybody was complaining about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and their policies and relationship with Israel and all this kind of stuff, when most people, they don't know anything. Like, we don't know anything. We don't work for the government. We don't know shit. But we have always had the right to say whatever we want with no repercussions. And I know all the conspiracy theory stuff, but I'm saying in general, most people have been able to be able to complain about anything, write things on social media, like horrible things, and nothing happens to you. It ain't like that in most of the world. And then this happened. And ironically, if this guy has his way, we won't be able to do any of that anymore. We won't be able to complain. We won't be able to do, have you heard the phrase, the press, the journalists, the media, they are the enemy of the people? The media, they are the heroes of the people, especially right now. The truth tellers are the heroes of the people. Brian Tyler Cohen, people like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not really into spending money right now or ever. I'm going to stop talking about it. I'm not going to buy a GH7. I'm not going to buy a S5 Mark II. If something happens to my S5, then okay, I'll think about it. I might do it. I'm never going to say never. You know, it is interesting to me. But, you know, I've always thought about the FX3 too. But you know what? The FX3, you know why I like that camera? Because I was such a huge fan of Danny Gewirtz. And so that's the way it is sometimes. He's like an ambassador. Like a lot of kids want to wear LeBron's shoes when they play basketball because he's LeBron James. They want, you know, that's how Michael Jordan made an industry out of that. And so I wanted an FX3 because I loved his work. But Danny Gewirtz lives in Pennsylvania, so I don't owe him an apology. But I know he's friends with all of you people. And so, man, I'm sorry to all of you. We don't feel that way. We're not with this program. This shit is fucked up. We don't want to be at odds with Canada. We don't want to make you feel a certain kind of way about your safety, your freedom, your independence from us. Like, who are we to even say these things out loud? It's astounding to me. Man, I'm sorry. I apologize for those running this country who, they don't speak for me. They speak for themselves. That's the other thing about this country. Everybody can speak for themselves. But ironically, I feel like now we have to come together more than ever. And again, my whole thing right now, and I'm going to end this video like this, my whole thing is to be kind right now. I want to be kind to everybody, even the people who are divided on the other side, the people who are in the red states and all that. I want to be kind to everybody because I know there are people who voted for him who I like. I don't know who they are because there's nobody in my world. I mean, frankly, my world is just blue and progressive, and I live in New York City. I mean, I'm from New York City. I live in Poughkeepsie right now. But I know that there are people who I went to college with. I went to college in Colorado. I know there are a lot of people who probably voted the other way. But I loved some of these people, you know. And I'm sure there are plenty of people who live right up near me right here, and plenty in New York City, who I just, you know, like when this affects everybody, which it's starting right now, but 6 months from now, 8 months from now, when people really start to feel it and people start losing their farms and people get sick from the food because there's no federal Food and Drug Administration making sure that our food is healthy, and when more planes keep falling out of the sky because the FFA is dissolved and there's less air traffic controllers, and when people are getting stupider by the day because there's no Department of Education, and we are whitewashing the history of this country and changing things and not allowing us to teach the real history of this country, when we're injecting religion into our politics, which is against the Constitution, like when all of this starts to really hit home, and when the prices don't go down, and when you're paying $12 for a dozen eggs, when you're paying $6 for gas again, when you can't buy a camera for less than $6 grand in this country, I want us all to be together. I want people to remember, like, Rock, man, he was kind to me. Even when we were totally separate and I was being pompous about it and bragging and shit like that, he was being nice to me. He was being kind. I want to be kind to people. I think love is the thing that's going to bring us together. That's it, you know? Because if we all come together like that, then there's strength in numbers, and there's so many more people who believe in the good things that have made this country continue to at least have the opportunity to move towards a better country. We've never been a good country for everybody. Never. Not even close. But we're getting there. We're getting better every year. People cannot dispute that. We're getting better all the time. We're moving towards a better world for all of us, for everybody. And so the only way to continue that is to stay together and to love one another, even despite our differences. And that's really hard, especially now. And especially with all the lies out there, like an AI, and you can't tell what's real and what's not real and all the bullshit. That's why now more than ever it's important to come together physically, like to see each other and go eat dinner with friends, go eat lunch with somebody, go to a different neighborhood than yours, talk to people, go to parks, go into stores that you would never go into, things like that, talk to people. Who am I talking to in this video? I'm talking to everybody. I mean, but mainly I'm apologizing to Gerald and Patrick and Mark and Maddie and all these people. Even though you don't know me from anybody, I'm quite sure you will never see this video. But that doesn't matter, because you have reached so many hundreds of thousands, millions of people who you never will know about. And so I know that I'm representing so many of those people by saying, yo, we ain't with this. We don't want this. We love you guys. We respect you. I mean, for me, you got two Nicks, great Nicks on your team right now. Like, I love you guys. RJ and Quickly, they were ours. We raised them first. So, and we got OG from you, so thank you. I'm not trying to joke around. I am embarrassed about this, and I will do my best to resist it by being as kind as I could possibly be and making the best art that I can possibly make, trying to make some kind of contribution. So, yeah, that's it for today.